Hi there and welcome back to my channel. This is Sean, the Honest Book Reviewer. In this video, it's all about thrillers, my favourite thrillers so far for this year. And yes, I'm aware, we're almost at the end of the year, and maybe I'll read more thrillers I really enjoy. But for now, I want to share with you the 9 thrillers that I've loved so far this year. The first is Mr. Mercedes, written by Stephen King. I loved everything about this book. This book has 3 characters that I think are some of King's best characters of all time. Bill Hodges, Holly, and Brady. Those 3 characters are amazing. Brady, I think, is one of the best villains of all time for Stephen King. And another thing about this book is it's so different for Stephen King. It's not supernatural, it's not paranormal, there's no aliens, no monsters, no creatures. It's all about thriller, detective work, and this cat and mouse game between Bill Hodges and Brady. That cat and mouse game really is important in this story. It builds up so much tension and suspense and doesn't let go. In some thrillers, that the tension and suspense kind of dips down sometimes. There are slow moments in some thrillers. In this book, there's not. It's so well paced. That suspense and tension builds up slowly over time and it doesn't go away. That's one of the best things about this story. And then Holly. Holly comes into this book about halfway through, and then thankfully she stays around. I know when Stephen King created Holly, she was meant to kind of be a fly-in, fly-out character. Thankfully, she's not. She's a wonderful character. I like just how balanced she is, how unique she is. I like how her mind works in this book as well. For me, Holly stands out in this story as a great character. Bill Hodges, I think, is the best character in this story. And Brady is a brilliant villain. I love everything about this story. I just love the whole plot, the way it plays out. It seems so controlled. It seems so well thought out as well. Everything about this is just brilliant in my view. Next, let's talk about Look Closer, written by David Ellis. This book is amazing. It's a perfect thriller. It's also a mystery because part of this book is about the murder of somebody, one of the 4 main characters. We learn about that at the start of the story. Then we have 2 timelines, 2 narratives. We have the present and past. And the past is about a month, I think, before the present timeline, and eventually they do merge. But also this book is about 4 main characters, 4 characters you'll dislike a lot of the time in this story. These 4 characters have all got schemes and plans going on. They're trying to outwit somebody else, one of the other 4 characters, sometimes more than one. What they don't know is that sometimes the other characters know what's going on, and they're trying to outwit each other. But this book is so clever. It keeps you guessing right to the end. You don't know what's going on right to the end. It's twisty, turny, so many twists you feel like a pretzel by the end. Also, every character feels so real. Even the detectives in this story, they're trying to solve the murder. They feel very real. The way they go about investigating, talking to people, just feels organic, feels real. Everything about this book feels real, like it can happen. Even though, this twisty-turny thriller sometimes is a bit over the top, it feels like it can actually happen. It's all down to those characters. Those characters that feel so lifelike really drive this story. If those characters didn't feel like that, I think this book wouldn't work. Even though it's a clever book, cleverly done, with the twists and turns, it feels very thought out. Those characters really drive home everything in this story. It's a great book. I don't know why people don't talk about this book more. This book should have been one of the best books, most talked about books in 2022, but it wasn't. But I'm so glad I read this in 2023. I want to talk about The Guest List by Lucy Foley. I love this story. I didn't think I would. After reading The Paris Apartment, and I didn't like that book very much, I wondered about this. But this book is brilliant. It's set on an island, an isolated island, and it's about a wedding. But the people in the story make this book. The people in this story are so unique. Not that they're unique characters, we don't see them in many books, but their voices are unique because each voice of the characters feels so different. This book is told, I think, from points of view of 3 main characters, and their voices feel so different, so distinct. It's like you're actually in their thoughts. You're seeing things the way they see things. That's so good. It actually makes this story. If that didn't happen, I don't think this book would have been as good. Because getting their point of view, in their own words, adds so much to the whole mystery, to the whole setting in this as well. Adds a lot of atmosphere to the book. I just love the way this book plays out. We have past and present narrative from many different people, But I didn't mind that in this book. Sometimes past present narrative doesn't work for me. When the book's so good, I seem to forget about it and just go along with it. Just the way this book plays out keeps you guessing, and the atmosphere on the small island where everybody seems cut off as brilliant, adds tension, suspense. The island itself almost becomes like a character. It impacts on people's moods in the book, impacts on how they think and how they feel. They change when they're on the island. That's very good in this story. I love this book. If you haven't read it, go out and read it. Lucy Foley, The Guest List. To Die For, written by Lisa Gray, was an arc I read this year. I love this story so much. Two things stood out for me very early on in this book, probably in the first chapter. So we have the hook in the first chapter, which is the crime, a murder. But we don't know who the victim or the culprit is. We don't have any clue about them. That's so good in this story, because then we go a little bit back in time and we meet a few major characters. But any of those characters could be the victim or the culprit. We don't know who. But we follow all of them very closely. And they all have things that make you dislike them and like them in two different degrees. And some characters you dislike very much in this story. But I like this. It's so sleek, very cleverly done. There's no wasted space in this story. It's very tightly done. Just those characters make this book so much. It's very character driven. A lot of suspense around the characters, a lot of suspicion. Just the way they move in the book as well. The author seems to have a great concept about moving characters and just in a way that's not wasteful in a story. Body language, actions, dialogue is not wasted at all in the book. And it just adds so much to the story because that suspense and tension doesn't drop, because the pace just keeps going. I like this book so much. I think if you want a slick thriller, you want a thriller that will grab you and you just keep turning those pages until you just finish the book in one setting, this is for you. Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. I really enjoyed this book. I didn't think I would. I have a strange relationship with Riley Sager's stories. In most of his books, there are things I really like, then things I don't like. But in this book, I liked everything about it. I like the atmosphere, I like the setting, I like the characters, I like the mystery, I like the whole concept of the story. So basically, it's kind of like a haunted house story, but much more. This woman inherits a house from her dead father. She had no idea her father still owned the house. They used to live in the house for a very short time when she was a child, I think about 4 or 5 years old. And they ran from the house because her parents said it was haunted, all these strange things happening. And from then on, it became like known as the girl in the haunted house because her father wrote a book about it. But she's never been sure. She's wondering all through her life if it's true. Was the house really haunted? And now she can find out. She decides to go back there. She wants to renovate the house a bit and sell it on, but she also wants to solve the mystery. Was this house haunted? But then there's another mystery. Something else happened that same night. And she's not sure what that was, but somebody doesn't want her to find out. So we've got many things going on in this story. We've got a thriller, got a bit of a ghost story. It's very gothic in feel. It's very dangerous for this main character. A lot of tension, suspense. Got so much going on in this book. I enjoyed it very much. Dead of Winter by Darcy Coates. This is an amazing story. It's the first book from this author I've read, but I want to read everything else this author writes. Basically, we have a group of people on a bus going in the snow to a lodge. In the way of the bus across the road, there's a tree. It's fallen down and they can't get past the tree. There's so much snow coming down, a big storm, so they can't even move on. But nearby, there's a small cabin. So they get into the cabin and they're sheltering there from the storm. Most of the people are strangers. There are a couple of people who do know each other, but most are strangers. Then the bus driver vanishes. And they're all wondering what happened. Was it one of them or somebody from the outside? They find something gruesome. They find the bus driver is murdered. That just ramps up the tension straight away. And then, is somebody a murderer? Is somebody in their group killing people off one by one? Because more things happen in this book as well. Or is there somebody out there that's out to get them? I love this book. Every character, even the narrator of this story, is a suspect. That's so unique, I think. How often do you read a book when the main character who's telling the story is a suspect themselves, amongst other people who are also suspects? You don't get that very often, I think. I found this book just amazing. To have it all set in such a small footprint as well, mainly in this cabin. It was so well done. It's very character driven, and all the characters feel so different, come from different backgrounds, different ages, both genders. Really well done, and they all feel real and organic. Everything in this book, even though it is a bit extreme with things going on, all these murders going on, it feels so real, so lifelike. It's very edge of the seat moments in this story. I loved everything about it. I think go out and read this. It makes me want to read everything by the same author. That's great when you read one book and then you're hooked on that author for all time. It felt like that for me after reading this book. Apartment 303 by Kelli Hawkins. I like this book a lot. This book is not getting enough attention, I think. It deserves more because it's so well told. So basically it's about this woman who's suffering from PTSD, OCD, and extreme anxiety, and she's housebound. Okay, that's not new in thrillers. There are thrillers, many of them, where the protagonist is housebound for some reason. But this book is so well done, so well told. What's happening is things are happening in her apartment that make her think somebody's invading her space. And it's maybe somebody linked from her past that's quite dangerous. Somebody she thought was no longer alive from her past as well. That's what makes it so unique. And she watches people from her apartment. She watches them across the road with binoculars. And while doing that, she thinks she sees somebody from the past as well, that person who should be dead. And that just ramps up all this anxiety and tension, especially when she's trapped in this very small apartment. We have characters that are coming in and going into her apartment, people she knows. But then as these walls of her apartment seem not safe anymore because things start appearing or things start changing in her apartment that she doesn't do herself. She's wondering, is somebody getting in? What's happening? It makes her question her own sanity, her own judgment. It makes other characters do that as well. So then we have unreliable narrator a little bit in this as well, another trope, but it's very well done in this story. I think all the characters are good. I think the tension suspense is good. It's well paced. It doesn't lose atmosphere in the story. I think for a thriller, it's very well told, especially with some of those tropes going on in the background. But it's a well told thriller, very well done, very well controlled. I think you should get this and give it a go. This book deserves more traction, I think. More people should be talking about it. The Lie Maker by Linwood Barcley. I had doubts about this book because Barclay's previous book wasn't that good. But this book is very special. So basically it's about this guy who's a writer, and he writes books loosely based on his life. And when he was a child, his father vanished into witness protection. He doesn't know why. His father just took off and never came back. No contact. He's not even sure if his father's still alive. So he's writing these books, and they're not that successful in this story. He's just getting by. But then he gets a strange offer. This lady turns up and says she's from witness protection itself, and they want him to create fake identities for people. She says they get authors to do this, very creative people, and it'll be a great job, great opportunity. And because his father's witness protection, he thinks he can use this job to try to find out about his father. Then this whole mystery starts unraveling. This thriller starts unraveling as well. We start to wonder about the people that's hired him. We start to wonder, is he safe? Is his father still alive? And if so, is his father safe? What about friends and other things going on in his life as well? Can they be trusted? All this starts playing out in this story. Very well told, very well controlled. The characters in this book are brilliant, especially the main character. I enjoyed it so much. These characters aren't characters that you'll talk about for years to come, I don't think. They're kind of stock standard for a book like this. But because they're so well told, so well constructed in this story, they carry the story, they drive it very much. And if those characters weren't so well written, this book would have failed. I think a lot hinges on those characters driving everything going on in this book. A great book, a book that will keep you guessing as well, a book that has many twists and turns, just a book that's very well told in my view. It makes me hopeful that Linwood Barcley will write more books like this in the future. Killers of a Certain Age, written by Deanna, Raybourn. I enjoyed this book and it surprised me. I didn't know what to expect. And I find I read a lot of books where I don't know what to expect. I don't really go and find reviews and things like that about books before I read them. I don't like to do that. I like to start a book with a fresh view, without being influenced by what other people think. That's how I approach most of my book reads. And in this book, I didn't know what to expect. I just looked at the back cover, thought it sounded interesting, and gave it a go. This book actually felt like a mashup between The Golden Girls, between Mission Impossible, and between Sex and the City. Very strange to say that, that's what it felt like. So basically it's about this group of female assassins, and they're all retiring, and I think they're all about 60 or something in this story. They're all retiring, and the company that's hired them doesn't want them to retire. If they do retire, this company is going to take care of them permanently, get rid of them. But these women find out about that scheme against them, and they prevent it. Then from then on, they're seeking revenge. It's all about them hunting down their bosses and seeking revenge. Very elaborate, very over the top. There are irreverent moments in this story as well, but it's so well told. One of the best things about this book is each of the characters feel so different. All different personalities, all different ways of looking at the world, the way they speak, the way they carry themselves, body language, the way they interact with each other, it's all different for each character. And I enjoyed that so much in this story because it makes it feel more real, that each of them are so different. And it just makes this whole book more enjoyable as well. This book is, at the same time, fun, humorous, serious, a thriller, a mystery, action. All these things play out in the story, and in many scenes, many of those things play out at the same time. That's what makes this book stand out so much for me. It just felt like the author had so much fun writing this story. That shines through as well when you read it. Because you got that enjoyment from the author coming through, I think you enjoy this book more. I really enjoyed this read, even though it was a bit outlandish sometimes, even though sometimes you think, okay, that's not going to happen at all. There's no way that happens in real life. It just played out so well in this story because it all made sense. It was consistent from the very first page to the end. I enjoyed this a lot. It's one of those books where you just have so much fun reading it. There you have a list of my favourite thrillers so far for this year. If you've read any of these books, let me know in the comments. I'll be interested to know what you think of them. On my channel, I read many thrillers. If you enjoy thrillers, check out my channel and subscribe. On the screen now is a link to a video for another book I'm sure you'll enjoy.